So you've seen, some ideas of getting XML to everyone, conquer the world with XML, right? So, what if we'll have XML on tablets or phones, right? What do you think about that? Yeah. Will that get will get XML closer to people, right? And the big announcement is that I will show you, boom, boom, oXygen on the iPad. So we've been working on the oXygen web editing platform, which takes oXygen and puts it on the server, and then makes it available both on desktop and mobile devices. We developed this as mobile first, and then we went to the desktop. Support all XML languages, support also form controls. So we can have those nice tuned interfaces on your mobile devices. Availability, of course, that's the question. I don't see the tweets. So right now it's a preview. We plan to have an early access available to our partners in a couple of months, and the release will be next year. And being a server-side application, it's in order to test that, it's very difficult because you need to package everything, deploy that application on a web server, connect to the web server, and so on. But Radu developed a plugin for oXygen, so you can just push a button and opens a Tomcat server on my oXygen with a web application, with this web application that uses the frameworks that I have in my oXygen version. And also gives me a QR code so I can scan this on my iPad and have the document here. I can make changes to the document here, and when I save them, they go on my machine. So I can change my machine, the document that sits on this machine. So let's try to. So the connection is actually on my phone. So my phone is the router now, because the server and this needs to be now in the same network, in the same local network. I will also connect these to. Let's see if we get this visible. So this is my iPad, right? Not too much light, but let's scan this code. And let's make this full screen. So now you see that document, docbook document that I have open in oXygen is here. I can look, scroll and see this document, and you can see here it says oXygen Reviewer. That's the initial mode is a review mode. Comments made in the document are highlighted, And if I select something, let me get this pointer. Here you see commented by John, and then the comment. And I can use these buttons like this to move between comments and changes made to the document. And I can use remove from here to say, to remove a comment. And if I have a change, I have accept and reject as actions here. I can also select something on the screen. I don't know if you see that. And the selection is not transmitted to this device, right? But I selected something and I say add comment. I have a window pop up. You cannot see that, sorry, on the transmission through to this. But I can enter my, I can enter my, the network is quite slow, probably going through my phone. So I can enter here something and say comment, and the comment is added, this comment was added to the document. And these are, of course, stored as oXygen track changes, oXygen comments, all the annotation support. If we click save, the document is saved, and if we go back to oXygen, we see that comment here, the comment that I just studied. Let's see, right? Let's enter again in full mode. Okay. But maybe if you swipe right, you get all the reviews, right? So you have this kind of review panel where you have all the changes made to the document, and now you can just tap them, and they are localized in the document. And what if you swipe over such a review, right? What you will get? You'll get edit and remove for a comment, right? If it's on this change, we'll get accept, reject, or comment. That's cool, right? So basically, that's the reviewing functionality. Let's maybe put the editor on a data document so we can change for not work only with docbook. Let me put this here. Set done. Scan this. Oh. No, not this one. Sorry. So this QR code points to a URL that will load the document that is currently open in oXygen. So now you see this snowdrop that you all know and love from all our demos. It's available on my iPad, right? And the initial review mode, but we can say edit, and now we are in the edit mode. If we, press somewhere, we don't see the keyboard. Maybe later. Come on. So you have the caret. Basically, you can move in the document, and if you position, come on, let me try again then to make this. Oh, okay. I should stay closer here. So as you move the caret, you have the same location tooltips that you know from oXygen, right? In this mode, it's similar with the mode from oXygen when you have partial tags on. So you see only smart markers for the inline elements. And now on the side, we have options to turn track changes on or off. Let's see. Undo, redo actions, content completion, rename, and probably will bring in also custom actions that you define in the framework, maybe here. So in order to track changes was on, off, let's make it on. And now if we add content, this is added with track changes. So we know who added this content. We go and delete some content. Again, this is recorded. And if you want to enter markup, you can do that, from the sidebar with the content completion part. But you can also press return as in oXygen, and you get, the options to choose from. So you can say either split paragraph, the action, or you can say I want an API name to be inserted here. Come on. Anyway, and then you can, so please. I already have it here, but not there. Let me try to maybe refresh this. I hope. No. So anyway, we have the API element added, and then you can just type in to add additional content. Let's try to reconnect again. Oh. Oh, I closed it exactly when it managed to connect. Okay. So you see the newly added API name now, right? And you can see also that I can use the iPad specific basically functionality to position the caret and so on. So I can go on and continue changing the document. So that's basically the basic functionality you will need to make changes to the document, to track changes on, to change markup and so on. And now you remember the simplified user interfaces that we presented. Let's try to make that available. So this, the simply quick topic, the data quick topic with the add section actions and so on, inline actions. Let's try to see if we can make them available here. And voila. You have that quick topic. Let's move to the edit mode. And now if I want to add another section, I click on the plus button. I stay close to my phone and you have the new section, and I can just start typing, the background changes, and so on. So now I do not need the, pressing return and getting the pop-up and so on. So I can deploy an application. I can customize oXygen, the desktop version, to create this simplified application. Then without making any change to that, just using the web, this server-based editing, I have the same functionality here or on any device, or on your laptop as JavaScript and HTML5. So XML anywhere, everywhere, right? Okay. I want to show you one more thing. We have also a full form-based document. This is a fragment of an I-90 permanent resident card in the US. They have a PDF form right now. And if we scan this, you should be able to see this in a minute. So you have the same form basically available here. And look for the date pickers. Oh, sorry. Take some time till you see this. Come on. So the date pickers are the platform-specific date pickers where you got the wheels, on the iPad, for instance, right? So you can just pick a date with this. Yo, voila. Right, so you see, you can use this to select a date, or you have drop downs and you can select, values from here and so on. Checkboxes. So all the functionality that you have in oXygen, and you say save. Yeah. And if we go back here, we see the changed document in oXygen. Yes?
So is it specific to iPad, or it can also work
No.
on an iPhone or an Android?
It works also on iPhone or an Android devices. It's the interface that we push is HTML5 and JavaScript. And the server part, as you see here, can reuse frameworks and plugins, because on the server it's the same oXygen that runs. And it's just like a remote interface for editing XML documents. Any questions? Yes?
So when you speak of a server, you don't necessarily mean a dedicated server machine. It could be your local workstation or something like that. That operates as a server.
In this case, this plugin that we created to be able to test this starts a Tomcat server on my laptop. It can be any server. Yes, Eric?
So would you expect to use the QR code as the launch mechanism?
Or no. So this is just a very, very easy way of testing. So if you make changes to the CSS, for instance, and you want to quickly test what it looks like on your iPad, you can quickly scan that and see how it looks like. We expect this to be integrated by you, by Frank, by CMSs, and they will provide this functionality, maybe, as an alternative to the current applet version. So you can...
As soon as possible. That's what we're working on.
I think it's going to be interesting to find what's the best way, if you only have your tablet, you don't have your laptop or anything, how do you access the file? How you browse some tree?
That will be the part of the CMS integration to provide that. Or, we are also thinking to maybe have like a demo application, provide editing over Google Docs, XML editing on your documents on Google Docs or Dropbox or something like that. So you should be able to see your documents there and just edit, but it's just as a sample, because we expect this to be provided as a real end product by one of our partners, not necessarily to be a standalone something in oXygen. And Eric also mentioned that they are working on some mobile solutions for their CMS as well, right? Eric?
So we announced about 6 months ago a mobile strategy that was designed to bring customers and their customers closer together. So there are 4 apps in that plan. One of them is, the first app we did was ironically a review app, similar to what you have already. And then we're doing an SME editor app as well, so that on tablets, I don't think we're going to edit really on the phone. That's a little too small. Unless you're a small thing. But we support Android and iOS. Those are the 2 main ones. And we intend to embed this application in there so that people can edit content as subject matter experts. So we're not going to give the full weight. It's impractical to do heavy editing. But for subject matter experts who want to make tactical changes, that's where we're going with that.
Exactly. And the issue is that you customize that, simplified user interfaces using inline actions and controls, and you don't need any toolbars, any other thing. The document is the interface. And you have that in oXygen, standalone or within Eclipse, then you can build, as Radu showed earlier, a custom application with the author component and push that to some users, or as a Java applet, as you've seen also in Vixiasoft and Componize and Instinct Tools presentations. So, and you push that over the web to people that can access that over on a desktop. But you can also, the same thing can be pushed to mobile devices or anything that knows HTML5 and JavaScript. So you can get everyone in a company create XML content for you. So you can just orchestrate that with Xproc further and check it with Schematron. Yes.
So was that Safari or was that your own app?
I'm sorry.
On the iPad, was that just the iPad native browser?
It was the QR code something. The QR code scanner opened that. But yeah.
Browser component.
Yes. It's just a standard browser on your device. No other questions?
I have a question, but I'm not sure you want to answer. No, my question is, do you have any idea how you're going to price it? It's not going to be free.
Probably we will use, so one idea is to use a similar licensing model with the author component maybe. So floating licenses probably in the same way as we do for the author component now. That's one of the ideas.
That would certainly be a reasonable pricing model, I would think.
So we thought about the pricing problem, particularly for subject matter experts of story. And the problem that we have is that at the same price as you get the full oXygen editor, it's prohibitive to charge the same price for casual authors and subject matter experts.
Exactly, but if they are using floating licenses, then.
License is interesting. It's an interesting concept. Some people like the floating license concept. Others would prefer to have a main user. So we've kind of debated exactly how we're going to price that ourselves to extend that out. Depends on somewhat extent how much you charge us.
I can represent RSI content solutions, so we have two content management systems, both of which also integrate oXygen applet. And this, I mean, we would stop working on the oXygen applet right now if we knew about this in 3 months, right? So, but I mean, the value of this is so high because it allows us to do something that we today really cannot do, which is serve everybody who needs to access our application. So both of our size content management solutions are web-only applications. And the applet, while it works, is way too heavy. And of course, it doesn't. We can't use it on tablets. So being able to provide this, provide the editing functionality, provide the ability to have the sort of highly tuned, customized editing experience that you described at a, at a reasonable, if not in fact low implementation cost. I mean, the value of that is really high. So even if the per seat cost was expensive, the value that it adds to your system is well worth, some additional cost.
I think in some respects depends on the way you choose to price. The CCMS vendor would choose to price it to in an RFP or sponsor to a vendor. What the vendor will decide the price because they perceive subject matter experts as having lower usage than a heavy-duty author. So they look at the price not in terms of the simplicity and the value, which I agree with, but they also look at the fact that they're not using it very often, so they don't want to pay a higher level price. So as I say, it's still still work in progress.
But you don't necessarily have to expose the per seat cost.
To that, no.
To that, right.
We have to figure out a way to bundle it in such a way as possible.
But I mean, I'm also thinking, so one of the problems that a lot of our clients have is that whole SMEs through wikis problem, right? Which is essentially an unsolvable problem. Yes. But this would give you a route to solving it.
Yeah. I think it would effectively kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the same thing can run also on the desktop, basically.
How heavy is it?
I'm sorry?
How heavy is it? How big is the JavaScript that you got to download?
Basically, it's just the document itself. It's probably, I would say, about twice the size or 3 times the size of the document. It depends also how much markup versus how much. So the markup probably will be about 3 times or the size of the markup, but the text will be more or less the same.
Sure, but,
So,
but there's also JavaScript, right, doing the browser functionality?
that's very light.
Much and it's cached by the browser.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that should not be a problem. But sorry, one of the main idea was, if you push one thing is that if you try to implement everything in JavaScript, for instance, you are missing a lot of the parsers, validation, and so on, and so on, and so on. And another thing is that if you use, if you put all the processing on the device, you'll drain the battery immediately. So I think the only reasonable way to do this is to just push the user interface and keep the processing on the server. And yeah.
So what we're seeing in the browser is really just a drawing of the user interface.
It's not. It's an HTML5 conversion of the user interface. We experimented initially also. So oXygen, it's available on Eclipse and on the Swing on Java, standard Java. So we implemented the user interface works both with Swing and SWT for Eclipse. And we made an implementation to be able to render the document also based on Canvas at some point. So that would have been like a drawing basically the user interface on a canvas. But then, so it's not like that. It's a conversion of the UI of what you see in HTML5. And that's what you get. Yes?
When you're working on the document, how much exchange is there with the server?
Mm.
And the applet is very dependent on its framework. It keeps reading the framework, so you basically have to give the framework to the the applet on the client side so that it's efficient.
The framework is on the server side now.
Yeah, so that's what I'm wondering is the browser regularly chatting with the server?
It has to, yes.
Okay, so
So it's not that regularly. I mean, you can optimize at different stages here, but I do not see this necessarily running offline without a connection to the server.
I'm not thinking about offline. I'm more concerned about network latencies for users that are far from the server, and how much will the UI be impacted by network latency? Is that a concern, or is it light enough or batch enough that we can work on? Like if you have users in Europe, servers in North America, there's a fairly high latency, and this has a bad impact on any network application. So.
You could always solve that problem by putting a server local and have that server then communicate on the back end to the CMS, for example.
That's what I'm wondering. Would be how.
As I said, this is still work in progress. So we are still since this and the current version already has different colors for all the highlights. You know, so when you have changes or comments made by multiple people, you have different colors as you have in oXygen for them. So we are still working on it. It's changing. Yes.
You demonstrated this on individual files, so one .doc file, one data topic. Do you plan to support traversing a document structure?
It already works. If you click on a link, it will open, you know, a URL that will edit the other document.
Okay, so
and we also support.
In the same way?
So, I'm sorry.
Could we process a data map in the same way, edit something there, and save the map file as well, or is that sort of more focused on the content of the topic? Will you provide an interface for editing maps in this way?
Data maps already have an author mode for editing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you can just use this. The data map is another framework.
Yep.
It has an authoring view. You can just use that.
Okay.
Yes?
So a couple of questions on this network thing. So have you looked at packets going back and forth and sort of have a sense of how heavy and how much data is going back and forth between the server? And number two, are you using something like JSON to
Yeah, we send only the changes that we make to the document to the server, and in general, you know, if there's no layout change, you're just typing something in a paragraph, the server will say you don't need any update. That's the most of the time that's what you will get. You know, you'll just send some text, the exact 3 characters that you typed or 10 characters to the server, and the server will say no update necessary on the UI.
Okay, and then what are you using for the inter-process communication? Are you using JSON or are you using some other kind of packet typing?
I think they're also using JSON.
Yeah, what I know is that we send only, you know, only the changes basically, a small request back to the server. So.
One other question. Sorry. Is the reviewer also online, needs to have an online connection, or can it work more in an offline mode?
Right now we send all that to the server, but I imagine that the reviewer can use, you know, if there's no connection, keep, you know, whatever you highlighted or whatever changes you've done in using the local database support in HTML5. So keeping that locally, and then when you have connection, push all this back to the server. I don't know. That may be, but again, as I said, it's still work in progress. That's why it's not yet released, but it's functionally it's already working. At least, you know, the basic editing, the reviewing, form controls. So it's 90% here, and we need, you know, a lot of time to have the other 10% done. Yes?
If you open a map and you're editing the map, can you start a publication doc from the tablet? I mean, could the future be that that's how you're kind of interacting with and creating like customized documents, or is that a possibility? Really publishing from the app?
Of course, as you've seen, you can trigger custom actions that are defined in oXygen. One such custom action, so now it depends also on the CMS integration. They can put, a publish button, and you push that, and you'll get the content published. But one of the custom actions that we have is trigger XSLT transformation. So in this case, for the strategic markup example that I didn't have time to show you, one of the actions is that you can put publish, click on publish to convert this document to HTML. So you can click on this and you'll get the transformation scenario triggered. So I don't see why you cannot, trigger these actions. It may still even work now. I don't know.
It's a possibility.
So yeah, that should of course work. As I said, depending on the integration, the CMS can provide that action. It can be an action defined in the framework as a custom action or whatever. Yes?
These custom actions, we've seen a few today. They are all documented in the developer documentation.
Yes, chapter 7 from the oXygen user guide. Yes. Frank, you also.
Yeah, well, just something came to mind because on the iPad people are going to be like reviewing and editing HTML. So you could also apply this to some sort of like app as well, like people reviewing or getting feedback from end users, and even like comments and even changes. We use the same way.
Sorry.
So like today, these are reviewers in the authoring process who are providing feedback.
Okay.
Okay, but it's all based on HTML. You could quite easily use the same application so that end users could comment and even modify sort of public output.
The user manual, for example. The oXygen user manual could be
Providing feedback.
Yeah, like on your oXygen user manual.
Yeah.
On your website.
Yeah, so basically you can, right now we collect this feedback from the web help output, but another...
That's actually, what he's talking about is a really good idea because, and that's an idea that we've also done, so Frank should join our company. But it's an idea that we talked, because ultimately you want to push content out to the end users because they want to participate in the content process. And the wiki approach never worked well. And so being able to have them access the content on an iPad and make either comments or feedback of some kind, have that feedback into the workflow that the authoring teams are using is huge. And that's what they want to do. And they want to be able to incorporate 10,000 users in that kind of environment instead of 50 or 100.
I mean, why not? I mean, it should work. But one issue here is that all of the CSS allows you to create these nice interfaces. For publishing, you may need a lot more than the CSS provides. So that may be an issue. But another good thing is that also Saxon Client Edition, have you heard of that? It's available also on as a JavaScript app. So you can take data, basically the source, you can edit it like that, or you can instead of transforming that offline and making an HTML available, you can transform it on the fly, when you show it. Radu, do you want to share also some? Yes.
Yeah, I'm not particularly familiar with your licensing model. How do you run multiple instances of the same application on the JPEGs? Because each of the instances could be serving a different user, be that review, edit, whatever. Did I understand your technology correct? So you have the server, and your browser, your mobile browser is accessing an instance of the application on the server.
Yes.
How does that work?
Basically, each
Take the microphone.
so
My password.
so for each document that you get from the server as a user, you have some kind of like a document ID which identifies this document that you also have opened on the server and is served on the client side. And maybe you can also give a user ID and keep track of all the documents opened for a specific user. On the server side, this is done in a Java servlet integrated in either in Tomcat or maybe in another server which supports servlets like Jetty, I think. That's about what it
I
is
can
done.
understand that as a document, but what about the actual application itself
The application on the client side, or
on the server side?
what the application on the server side?
You spoke about different frameworks depending on what the user look and feel, or I should say, what the user wants. So you can have three: an editor, a super user, and a reviewer.
That that's basically like it is the case also now. You are talking about what Ixias of Jean-François presented, when they set different CSS, or they customize the functionality of that view based on the user. I don't see a problem because the frameworks are pluggable, basically. In this case, when I open the server, this uses the frameworks I already have in oXygen. But if some other user starts, instead of giving, let's say, the frameworks as a static URL, you can include a username in that, and you'll retrieve a different set of frameworks, let's say, for that user, depending on that user role or whatever. So although you start the application and it says oXygen frameworks, but user role equals X reviewer, then you'll get a different, based on the user role, you can get a different set of frameworks with the same application on the server. Yes?
Let me ask the question maybe in a different way. So you have a server-based application that will serve requests for editing, review, maybe super user, but editing and review are the two that are foremost. How many simultaneous sessions could that server handle? Do you have a design goal for the number of connections from individual tablet users before you have to instantiate another server-side oXygen instance?
I think we made some tests even the other days, right? And we managed to get how many users from in 100 megabytes. I think we got about.
With all the optimizations that we are gonna do, probably for a small data topic, you need about one megabyte of internal memory on the server side.
So 1 giga will give you 1,000 users, or something like that.
So that's your scale.
But we also need to do some speed optimization so that those 1,000 users can all edit in parallel tracks, and the server can respond to them quickly.
But that depends also on what machine you have, right, as server.
You could probably load balance it quite easily as well, couldn't you?
I'm sorry?
You could load balance it over the whole server quite easily as well.
Probably.
So just the last question, and I'll keep quiet. So you have a multi-user version of your software. Is that right? How are you running multiple instances of the application missing with that.
Yeah, so your server-side instance, they was small to use, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Even now, even this can be accessed by Radu on his machine and on a different tablet, and me on the other one. You know, so yes, it's for multiple users.
And I think the original question was about licensing, right?
Right.
So I think that's where oXygen proposes floating licenses, where it counts how many users are connected at the same time. And I don't know exactly how it's enforced, but let's see if you take 5 licenses, then there will be only 5 users can be connected at the same time.
So the same instance that is up.
Yeah. So it can be 1,000.
What we are also considering now, having the model on the server, is to keep open the possibility to push 2 or more user interfaces in the same time over the same model. So then you'll be able to have parallel review, for instance. When you make a comment, I immediately see that comment and things like that. Or when you make a change, you know, like when you share a document in Google Docs and 2 people edit on the same document, it should be possible also with XML. That's another direction.
Has that feature in their web editor.
I'm sorry?
EasyData has that feature now in their web editor. Yeah. It's quite good. It certainly demos very well. I don't know how it works in practice, but I presume it does.
Okay. Any other questions? Radu, do you want to say something about what we have, also other things that we do in oXygen for the next? Yeah.
So the next
Is
version.
there a developer or partner program that we can talk to you about to get our hands on this, start playing around?
We have this partner program, yes, and we signed with a lot of companies, and yes, sure. As I said, we plan to have an early access available to partners that want to integrate this technology before actually releasing it next year. So then when we are ready, you can be also ready with your applications. And yeah.
So the next oXygen version will be version 15.2, which we plan to release this December or the next year in January. Indeed, most of the visual editing part of oXygen team has moved to the web reviewer. We are somehow crippled, but we also managed to support some interesting CSS pseudo classes like hover and focus. So I think that George already showed you that in the visual editor, for example, you can hover an element and some buttons can pop up, you know. So instead of having buttons which are present all the time,
like here,
you hover the element,
okay.
and you have some progressive disclosure depending on the part of the document where you want to focus. For the focus pseudo class, you could move the card in the document, and when you move the card in a specific element, some buttons could pop up, and again you could press them, and maybe you move the card in an element and the border shows around it and shows that this is the element in which you are editing right now, or something like this.
We implemented also like going over a link and you see the link highlighted, you know, things like that.
We worked on the table support in the visual editing part. But we worked to hide the color specifications, which were quite complex to be dealt with, but you could deal with them just by dragging and dropping the columns to resize the table. And we added a small button that you saw in my data presentation to show or hide the column specifications on the table. And various improvements like properly presenting column separators and row separators on the table. We work in the content completion window, right? In oXygen 15.1, you press enter, and the content completion window offers you only the valid elements in that position. In oXygen 15.2, after the valid elements, the content completion window will propose you a lot of other elements, and if you choose one of them, oXygen will try to insert it in a specific place where it considers that it should be properly inserted.
So for like, you know, inserting a paragraph inside another paragraph, you see it's presented grayed out. Sorry. It's presented grayed out here. But if I press this, then we have, you know, inside the closest body element, it says it's kind of like a recovery strategy when you paste invalid content. And it says, I cannot insert this here, it's not valid, but you can insert it in the closest body element where that's accepted. That's very useful also when you don't know where is the rel table, you know, and, you hunt for the position. Now you just press enter and it's a rel table and it will go. oXygen will try to put it in the right position.
On the data part, we also made an experimental integration of the data 1.3 troubleshooting specialization. Some users requested it, and we'll see what comes of it. I don't know, we keep ourselves busy with different small improvements and bug fixes and so on.
Being you know, a dot release, although in the previous dot release we made change tracking for attributes and bidirectional support and all that. Now in 15.2 we want to focus more on small issues, trying to fix as many annoying small things as possible, and you know, yes.
Does editor mode get any of the cool stuff, or does that all happen in author mode?
We are also working. Tavi and Radu were working on what they work on the development part. Yes, we are. They added the support for schema version. So XML schema 1.1 and 1.2, right? You need to be able to change or specify what schema version you are using at some point. And initially we had the default because although you have, you know, when you have a style sheet, the version attribute specifies the style sheet version. In XML schema, when you have XML schema version, that means your schema version is not the version of the schema language that you are using. So in the end, I raised this on the XML schema dev list, and Mike suggested that we can use, there's a VC min version and VC max version attributes that are usually used to conditionally include some parts of the schema. So you can define, for instance, if you want to use assertions, or if you want to define a schema that works also with 1.0 processors and with 1.1 processors, then you can put the specific 1.1 features with requirement with min version equals 1.1. And that will be excluded when you process the schema with the XML 1.0 processor, for instance. So we implemented support to use these attributes on the schema itself to automatically detect the version and use the current, you know, set the processor to use the right level, the right version for the XML schemas.
Also, what I would like to see in version 16, in the visual editing part of oXygen, we have that toolbar with all the actions. we want to at some point add more API for the text page. So if you edit data topics in the text page, you can also insert a correct there, a cross-reference, insert an image, and so on. So if we add this API, we can then use it to improve the support for edit actions also in the text mode, and migrate some of the actions we have from the visual editor to the text page.
Yes?
Now you're talking about different editing mode. I'm wondering, is anybody using the green mode?
Not me. We also, at some point, we also had a tree editor. I don't think if we have, do you still have the tree editor? Tools. Up. Oh, we have it. Okay.
How is that different from the outline view?
So this is something that nobody uses. we need to get rid of that at some point because, yeah, look, it's something that we did probably in oXygen version 2 at some point 10, 12 years ago. But this is the outliner is not an editor, but here you can edit, anything. But it was a trend at some point that every tool needs to have a tree editor.
I used to use that feature in Architect all the time. But now I don't need to. I haven't missed it in oXygen.
Yeah, because the outline provides that probably, and being synchronized all the time.
Yeah, I think it's being synchronized. Because what I would use the outline editing in Architect for, especially, was find something and just change a little bit of text, which was really easy to do in that outline editor, in the outline view in Architect, and not have to go find where it is in the main editing view. But I think Architect, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't synchronized the way that oXygen is. Whereas in oXygen, this was some years ago now. Yeah, because in oXygen, you pick what you want, you find something in oXygen in the editor view. As soon as you select it, your editing position is right there.
The grid mode is still used by people who have databases and they export data to XML, and the grid mode looks really nice and shows the XML in a table-like fashion. And
so that's for documents that contain data in general, records of data in general. But if you have mixed content and anything like XML documents that contain documents, right? Then the grid mode doesn't really help. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the meetup, and you'll come back another time. And we want to thank you again for staying that late with us, and thank you.